the things that sort of irritate us about other people are usually one of two things. One, it's something that we probably need to work on
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah. And two, it's what's different about them. And often what's
That's
different
good.
about people is it's what we find difficult about them.
Mm.
And if we take the time to understand what's different about other people, see through their lens, step into their shoes, well, then actually that's going to improve that relationship because we're seeing things from their perspective rather than from our own.
Hi, I'm the self-development coach, Johnny Lawrence, and welcome to the Self-Development Podcast. Now, before we get into today's episode, I just want to say a massive thank you. Just recently, it's like somebody's pushed a button somewhere and all the listenership on the podcast has gone up. And it's really exciting. And I get lots of like nice emails and messages for which I am also going to apologize because I wasn't really prepared for that. And I think I might need a bit of help. So if I haven't replied to you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I haven't found the time and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, I'm just super grateful for all of the support, all of the listenership, the following on social. Just really, really grateful. I started this thing a couple of years ago. I didn't really have a plan. I just kind of did it. And yeah, it's going really well. And I'm really grateful. I look at it like we're all on this journey together. Some of the messages I get from some of the listeners and what they've heard from some of the speakers, like this wonderful speaker we have today, they're obviously getting something from it. You're obviously all getting something from it. And that's the point. That is the point. The point is that everybody gets value from listening to people that have been through hard things or have gained knowledge by studying or experience. And that has value. So anyway, very wordy way of saying thank you very much. But I have learned a great deal myself over this time. And one of the people I have learned a lot from is the person I'm speaking to today. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Sharon Lawton. Sharon is a certified ICF coach and head of training and business development for the Coaching Academy. She's an award-winning coach, NLP practitioner, and DISC behavior profiling specialist. It feels like that should be hard to say, but never mind. Sharon is responsible for making sure that the Coaching Academy continue to produce high-level coaching education that in turn produces high-level professional coaches. With a 14-year background in learning and development, delivering conflict management, mental fitness, and a wide portfolio of personal development, emotional well-being, and resilience programs, Sharon has developed a passion for motivation, empowerment, and growth, and has focused interest in inspiring people to achieve their full potential. How are you today, Sharon?
Oh my goodness, I don't recognize myself, Johnny.
oh no, sorry, wait, no, that's the wrong sheet. No, I'm just joking. no, you're all of those things though, aren't you?
Thank you.
You're one of
That's
those
such
like
a
one of those
lovely
heroes
intro.
in the background, just doing stuff.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. It's really nice to hear.
No,
And
how are you?
Lovely. I am lovely. I am doing really well. I'm bouncing today. It's a bit of a rainy day here, actually. Wherever it is, wherever you are, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's I'm good. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
And it's such a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh no, we've been trying to make this happen. You are like coaching's most busiest person. Like I wanna know, right? Be honest. Is there two Sharons?
Well, if I could clone myself, I think I probably would. Not sure my partner would like there to be two.
I'm gonna stay well away from that. I am not gonna get into that one. That feels like a trick. I was laughing on. I did the school run just now, and me and my wife have been in and are in, and we're taking boys to Paris next week, and we're really excited about it. And my son was asking questions about how to get there. He's 10, and he says to me, "How are we getting there?" I said, "Oh, we're going to take the train." And he's like, "The train? But isn't it like overseas?" I said, "Yeah, the train goes under the sea." He went, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait. We're going to see fish and everything." No, wait. I went, no, it's not. You can't see anything under the water. And he looked at me and he said, "What is the point of creating a train that goes under the sea when you cannot see any fish?" And I was like, "It's got a good question."
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I've got two boys myself, and the inquiring minds of children, is just brilliant. Yeah.
My wife always says, like, if we meet people or whatever, or school people, and if they've got like girls, she'll go, oh, right. And I'll say, what's that? She went, mother of boys. That they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, oh, okay. you know, but what I hear is that it's hard work in the beginning, but it gets easier, and it's the flip when it comes to girls. I'll never know if that's true, but I've got a mate who's losing his hair. He's got two girls. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't know.
Well, tell me about it, because I have two boys. My sister
Okay.
has three girls.
Oh.
So yeah, my brother-in-law has a man cave, which he sort of ventures into on a regular basis. That's quite funny. So he
Yeah.
gets his fix for sort of like male company when he comes to us, and I get my girly fix when I go to my sisters, and so it works well for us, actually.
Yeah, that is good. I'm trying to think if that works out for us. No, I don't think we've got anyone like that. Not close anyway. But it is what it is. I think my wife sometimes she just wants to go away for like 3 days and not speak to any of them because she's got a house full of boys. She's got me, the two boys. We've got my nephew stopping with us at the moment. So yeah, it's a lot for her. She has got a female dog though. We've got a dog named Effie, and I think that's the daughter she always wanted.
Oh, I did the same with a cat. I've got a
Yeah.
female cat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Makes sense. It makes sense. But anyway, look at that. Like that's the chit chat out of the way. Like the format of a podcast. It's like a little bit of chit chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But listen, for those that might not know about you yet, do you want to tell people a bit about yourself and sort of your journey so far and how you got to be two Sharons working for the Coaching Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a pleasure. So my background is always been in learning and development. I say always. Obviously, I didn't start when I left school at 16. Didn't go to university. Didn't have any A levels. And I actually say this when I do the beliefs webinar at the Coaching Academy, the introduction to beliefs, that I think I was very privileged to have had a dad who had a coaching mindset. I didn't know it at the time. And he gave me a really strong internal belief that sort of went along the lines of, if you don't give it a go, how will you ever know? Mm. And that sort of stayed with me. My mum, bless her, I love her to bits, but she's a little bit glass empty, where my dad was always like the optimist, and really had that sort of optimistic and coaching mindset. So, and I think I've sort of fed that through to both the boys as well, actually. If you don't give it a go, how will you know, type of thing. And so, sort of left school just with your sort of, basic qualifications, started the world of work. And then I ultimately fell into learning and development. So I was a secretary in an underwriting company, insurance company, and the guy that I worked for was very much into supporting and mentoring and developing new talent coming through. Nice. And I loved that part of his role. And he went on an accelerated learning training course. And I don't know how he did it, but he managed to get the funds to get me to do it as well. And I fell in love with learning and development. I loved it. Use it, and I still do it now, using scented pens. If I'm working sort of like, face to face with groups of people, and using all of our senses to really anchor good learning. And that's sort of where my passion really started. And I did a sideways move, and I moved into the L&D department, and started sort of, did my learning and development exams, did, member of the CIPD, and did my chartered exams with them and stuff, and loved it. And then met my partner and had my children and took a career break. And I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to go back. Although I loved what I was doing. And then some colleagues that I kept in contact with told me about this thing called coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is, so Alex now, so Alex was born in 1999. So we're talking about the early 2000s, which was sort of about the time that, coaching was busting onto the market in here, rather than just over in the States. And they were talking about this thing called coaching, and they were getting external people to come in to coach middle and senior management. And I thought, this sounds really interesting. And this was sort of around 2006, 7, 8. And sort of took me a little bit of a time to sort of find out a little bit more, because at that time, and I don't know if any of your listeners might resonate with this or not. At that time, I'd chosen to stay at home and take a career break. It was my choice, and I loved it. You know, I'm a passionate believer. If you can be at home, there's no substitute. All that social learning theory that our kids get, you know, sort of is invaluable. But we're not all, you know, lucky enough to be able to do that. So I had the pleasure of being able to do that. It was a choice. But I was starting to feel a little bit invisible. I'd lost my identity, if I'm honest with you, and even my name had disappeared. So I'd become Alex's mum, or you know, rather than Sharon, it was oh, let's go and speak to Matt's mummy, you know, that type of thing. And when I'd meet them for the first time, they go, "Oh, really nice to meet you. You know, my husband was still in corporate. Really nice to meet you. What do you do?" I had a physiological response. I sort of shrunk into myself a little bit. It's like, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mum type of thing. You know, all the things that, you know, I would, because I do a lot of parent and family coaching, all the things that I would coach people
even though that's like the world's hardest job ever. Like, you know.
Absolutely, definitely. So I was definitely, I'd lost a little bit of identity, definitely lost a little bit of confidence in who I was. And I was looking for something to connect with. And then I found out about this thing called coaching through some colleagues. And I did some Googling, came across the Coaching Academy, did their free introduction to life coaching event. And at that time, I thought, if nothing else, it's a few hours away from the kids.
Honesty, love it.
Yeah. And I thought, I can be me, you know, I can be me. You know, I can wear whatever I want to wear. I'm not somebody's mum, you know, they don't know me in that identity. And I attended that event, and no kidding, Johnny. Well, I'm sure you can resonate. That event ignited a fire that still burns today. And that's the love and passion of empowerment of people to make changes in their lives through
got
coaching.
goosebumps.
You know,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it really is. And I left that event and I skipped down the road. And as soon as I was on the phone to my husband, going, "Oh my God, this stuff is amazing." And I walked in the door and he said to me, "You're different." He said, like, the old Sharon is back. The spark is there. This something has changed, you know, and I just couldn't switch it off. So you would think, then she enrolled, and the rest is history. Because you know what limiting beliefs are like. You know what those sabotaging thoughts are, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Give them a few days, and they'll work their magic.
Oh my God! And so at this stage, my dad had passed away, so I didn't have his sort of positive influence. And you know, my mum was like, "Oh, you know, the kids are very young, and you know, you need to be looking after the kids." And so, you know, that really manifested itself into a belief where, like, who are you as a stay-at-home mum to think you could be a coach? Where would you get your clients from? You've been out of the workplace too long. I mean, you know, you're not in the corporate world anymore. You just listen to me, just surrounded by other people like you who would engage your services, you know, all of that stuff. So I was really fortunate that, you know, my partner said, "Look, you know, this definitely is a bit of you. You know, let's just sort of take that jump and go for it." You know, and he said, if you don't give it a go, how will you know?
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that I did, because, you know, I've met fantastic people along the journey, you know, yourself included. You know, but in those early days, you know, it was tough in those early days, because I did have those limiting beliefs. You know, I thought, well, everyone was cleverer than me, everyone was more professional than me, you know, I'm just a mum, you know, that type of stuff.
I can tell you firsthand that is not true. No, that is not true, like, at all.
But yeah, we know, right? Coaching, we are our first client, so, you know, those layers, you know, we peel those layers off like onions. But yeah. And then here I am. So I qualified in 2009. It took me a little bit longer than the average person, because of the family, you know, so that was great for me. It was brilliant because I could, you know, one of my values is, you know, relationships and valuing, you know, sort of family relationships, you know, but I also have a value of, you know, sort of really sort of developing myself, you know, and being true to myself. So, you know, I could match both of those and do it at my own pace. Launched a successful, you know, a business, successful business, and working actually, interestingly, in the education sector. So coaching in schools, out of schools, parents, etc. And then in 2015, I guess my visibility to the Coaching Academy just sort of came on the radar because I won their International Coaching Awards back in 2015.
Nice.
And then did loads of disc stuff. Did all my disc training, did loads of disc stuff, and and then became one of their associate trainers, and that's sort of how my relationship with the Coaching Academy grew, starting off as an associate trainer, and then they asked me to come on board and lead up the team. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I've loved every minute of it. And we're still in the journey. Who knows?
Yeah, I was going to say that you can still see the passion burn strong. I mean, just for those people that are listening that might not know what disc training is, we're going to get onto that a bit later on. So just bear that in mind in case you're thinking, what on earth is disc? But I just want to point out what strikes me right now is like, think about that, right? That how many people are having those self-doubts, are thinking to themselves they can't do this, and they let their limited beliefs spiral and become this massive pit of you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, who do you think you are, all these different things. And imagine you'd listen. Like, I can't like you're like, without, you know, going too far, because I know it can be a bit much and stuff, but like imagine you hadn't, like, the impact that you've had is ridiculous. Like imagine you didn't do it. Like there'd be so many people that just would have missed out on this training, on the Coaching Academy, on becoming a coach, or and then even more than that, being coached. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine, no, but think about it like that. And I think that is like a really important thing to take from that little introduction there, is that, look at that. There comes a point, I think, for everybody where there's a bit of a decision. Do I go left? Do I go right?
Yeah.
And like, I think it always pays just to bet on yourself. It helps when you've got supportive people in your life. But sometimes if you find yourself without as many supportive people as you'd like, bet on yourself. Do it. Go for it. Why not? You know, because one of the biggest things that have impacted me from the Coaching Academy was the rocking chair test. Because when I did that, I realized that there was nothing that I fear more than getting to 90 years old and thinking, I wish I had. I can't handle that. I don't want to handle that. It's the worst feeling, because there's nothing you can do about it. But what the rocking chair test does is it's magic. If you really embrace it, you feel that feeling of I wish I had, and then you come back to being where you are now and thinking, I can do that. That's amazing. Let's go. You know? And I just think that,
there's a great quote. Sorry to interrupt you. There's a great quote by a guy called Peter Crone. Now, Peter Crone is known as the mind architect. I don't know if you've ever come across him. I love his stuff. And he says, if you don't take care of what is going on in your mind, then you'll only ever become the best version of your limited self. Now, that's quite profound, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got layers, that has.
Yeah, it really has. It really has. But, I think we really fundamentally underestimate the power that our limiting belief, sabotaging thoughts, self-doubt, whatever it is that we want to call it, actually has. And you're right, we can listen to them and go one way and never know what we could have been. Or, sometimes it's a little bit of a sort of like, we get that sort of like, oh, I've got that really buzzy feeling in my tummy, and I'm not really sure if I'm doing the right thing, but I think I am. And let's.
That's how I know I am a lot of the time. If I'm terrified, like I'm doing a talk on Saturday and I'm scared because there's like 400 teachers. That's how I know I'm doing the right thing. Because it scares me a little bit. I've got a friend called Donna Lancaster, and she's a coach, and she always says there's nothing worse than living half a life.
Oh,
And it's like,
yeah.
it always resonates every time I hear her say it. It's nothing
Mm,
worse than living half a life, And
mm.
it's like, you can do these things. Yes, they will be hard. Yes, they will be challenging. And most of the time, you probably won't think you can do it. And there'll be days where your motivation's gone. Therefore, we need discipline. But that's okay.
Yeah,
All of that is all right.
yeah,
There's a massive difference between what things look like and actually what's going on up here, right? And it's like
yeah.
just not buying into it sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and certainly when I've reflected, what I found is that my sort of inner critic has shown up most loudly when I have been looking at my sort of innermost passions or wanting to pursue something that is really important to me. um, and and I share it with students. Really, I sort of liken that now as a little bit like a bouncer, sort of that's standing there on the edge of our comfort zone. And when we're in our comfort zone, which by the way is great, but it's very cozy, but it's boring. um, when we look to step out, it's like the bouncer is all of a sudden like there, and it's like, whoa, you're not coming any further forward because I'm here to protect you, and it's really just protecting us from fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of, whatever fear of success, all of those things. But what if you don't give it a go, how will you ever know?
It's interesting, that fear of success thing. Again, part of the talk I'm doing on Saturday is a lot about that. It's about that fear. Like it took me a while in my career. I started as a PT and was doing that for 15 years. I realized I was masquerading as a PT. I was actually a coach the whole time, because I got to like my 40th birthday, and I was reading testimonials, and although people had lost weight and got fit, no one actually brought that up. Everyone was just like, yeah, he's really helped me realize this and really helped me realize that. I'm like, what? Can you talk about the fitness, please? So that's when I realized that I need to crack on and get on with it. And it's a hell of a journey. It's hard. It's hard to live your purpose. It has a feeling attached to it that is anxiety. I heard this right the other day. The definition of anxiety is the awareness of infinite possibilities. What? Makes you feel sick.
Wow.
It makes you feel sick.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's what
Yeah.
happens when you want to follow your purpose. You can carry on being mum. You know what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling. It has many, many great moments. It has many, many hard moments. But you know what that looks like, and you can carry on doing it. You're going to do it anyway, or you can do this other thing. What does that look like? I've got no idea. You know what? I'm not going to bother. That's hard,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
people do. And what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is like, don't do that. Like, bet on yourself. Like, do what Sharon did. If ever in doubt, do what Sharon did.
It's funny because my kids often used to say to me, don't you talk to me like one of your clients.
Oh, get it all the time.
But
Don't
do you
coach
know
me.
what? No, exactly. But do you know what? My youngest is 20, and he's just started, had a gap year, just started doing sports science, and he loves the psychology side of things.
Yeah.
And he did some the NLP training diploma level, and it's just the entry level. And he absolutely loves it, and he uses it, sort of all of the time. And he comes and he now asks, and he uses sort of coaching approaches. So it's really funny, and it goes back to that whole social learning theory thing. When we live our purpose, when we live our dreams, we cannot not affect other people in some way or another, whether we see it in our nearest and dearest, or whether we've just touched somebody, a colleague, I don't know, a friend of a friend, or just a throwaway comment to somebody that is a chance meeting. When you're a coach, it's in your blood, and you say something, and you've touched them in a way that has left them really thinking, okay, so that's different.
Yeah.
Somebody's asked about me rather than telling me about them. And I think that's the difference that coaches definitely make. We really truly listen, and we listen at a level that really makes people feel safe and understood and valued.
Yeah, and that's it. I spent some time with a good friend over the weekend, and we went to Brecon, and we were climbing Pen y Fan. And recently, unfortunately, in his family, his wife's sister passed away. And it was a couple of years ago, but due to sort of pandemic and lockdowns and stuff, I hadn't seen him, hadn't had a chance to talk to him. Didn't feel like the right thing. Like, I don't know, it's a bloke thing. We don't speak on phones and all that sort of jazz. Anyway, I said to him, like, how does it, how was that for you? How are you about all of that? And he just got really upset. And I said, are you okay? And he said, like, no one's asked me that, and it's just like, that's it, isn't it? It's like people, men, women, whatever, they just want to be heard. They want to be asked that question so they can feel that emotion or have that experience. And we provide that opportunity that's safe and non-judgmental and kind of just, here it is. It's yours. Let's go. Let's experience that emotion. And like I often say to people, like, we have breakthrough sessions. You have breakthrough sessions where somebody really realizes what it is they got to do. But a lot of the time, the work happens in between. And I think it was on the Coach Academy that I heard that you never treat this the client's always a different person every time they turn up to the session, and you have to treat them that way. Because then I think about it, like, if you treat somebody the way that they used to be, then they're going to act that way. So it's about being open and saying, oh, who's this person I'm speaking to today, and pointing out those differences. It's exciting. You're like, oh, look at you, like, you're doing this now, you're doing that now, and then I didn't even realize I was doing it. It's like, well, there you go, that's the point, we're pointing it out now. But it's a great industry, and the Coaching Academy is definitely leading the way. There's no doubt about that. You guys are putting a lot of work in, and you're still doing it. You're always trying to better the product and to better the approaches you do. Matter of fact, it's funny. It's one of the only courses I've ever done that actually gets bigger as the years go on. It's like I go back on there and it's like, oh wow, there's more stuff here. It's not just like a one and done. It's always expanding and always improving. And it's clear to me that you are practicing what you preach. You are learning as you go along, and you're applying that learning to what you're doing, your product.
Oh, thank you for that, Johnny. That's really important because, my why, the Coaching Academy's why, is there's a lot of noise out there about coaching. But I think, good quality coaches who can work with their clients safely and ethically, and do all of the things that we've been talking about, they are few and far between, because working with people safely and ethically and, in that safe psychological space and all of that, makes a big difference. So for us, it's really important that that it's a journey, right? So the person that comes in one end isn't the same person that comes out the other end, in a good way. I'll just say that, is in a good way, because we work on ourselves as we go through. So we grow and we develop, and we're work in progress. So basically what I'm saying is the reason why we are constantly looking at where can we improve and what can we add is because it's just not just the sort of the knowledge and the skill. It's not just the depth, it's the breadth. So for us, it's really important that the coaches that leave, with their qualification, well, they don't really leave because they always come back, which is lovely, and which is what I really love, which is why. So thank you for inviting me on today. But the coaches that sort of have their qualification, they have the depth and the breadth. They've got that lifelong learning, and we are always looking at how we can look at upskilling in lots and lots of different ways. So where it might be a niche, or it might just be something that is in the industry that we feel is really important for our coaches to know about.
But I think that's what I'm saying, is like you're listening and responding, and you're leading by example. Like, you're not just, so many times, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, although it probably comes across that way, is that, like, there's a lot of courses out there that tell you how to be a coach, but a lot of the principles they don't practice themselves. And then that becomes that, what that does is it damages that information for me. When I'm listening to it, it's sort of like polluted slightly, because it's like, well, they don't actually believe this, so why are they teaching it to me? Whereas you guys do. And you're constantly putting that over all the time. You kind of live it, and no one's perfect. We all have moments. Pretty sure there's gonna be moments in the day it's like, well, that wasn't very coachy. We'll see. But that's just life. We're all human, right? So that's the way it goes. But I mean, one of the things that I always notice is that a lot of clients, when you first meet them in them early sessions, they talk about happiness. And they say, you know, I just want to be happy. I'm searching for happiness. And I think that in itself suggests that they're unhappy. I mean, what are the sort of commonalities that you've seen and identified that would say why people feel this way? Why are people feeling so unhappy these days? What do you feel about that?
Good question. Wow. Okay. So I'm speaking from my own perspective. I just want to put that out there
Yep.
now. So I think there's a lot going on. We live in a consumer environment that tells us, let's rewind. You mentioned about being a PT. The gym industry, the beauty industry, all benefit from, I'm not going to use the word making, but maybe encouraging us to think that we are not good enough. And it's the same with consumer products as well, right? So we think if we looked in a particular way, then we'll be good enough and then we'll be happy. If we had the latest gadget, then we'll be good enough and then we'll be happy. And so we're sort of searching for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think we've sort of lost what happiness actually is. Yeah. What does it mean? So, what does happiness mean? It can mean so many things to so many people, because when we have got that thing or we've got that body or we've got that, whatever it might be, that beauty product, we're then fed, well, then you need this next thing. And then you need this next thing, or you need that next promotion, or you need that next fancy car. And so do we actually get to that achievement of, I've achieved that now. I'm happy. I've got that thing now. Now I'm happy. So it's sort of, and it's going to sound a little bit of a cliche, I think, but I think we've got to sort of stop chasing the rainbow.
Love that.
Stop chasing the rainbow, because what we're actually looking for, and I haven't got it all right. Of course I haven't. So even though I'm saying it, I get tricked into the consumerism. But what we're actually looking for is actually right in front of our noses.
Oh, absolutely.
And happiness isn't about having all of those things. We can find happiness in the tiniest of things. And I learned this, Johnny. I mean, and I'm still learning, but I learned this through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I actually learned that the things that really make my heart sing, apart from coaching, of course, the things that really make my heart sing are the simple things.
Yeah.
Like, I was blessed with, not everybody had a great, sort of experience of the pandemic. I was very lucky not to have been affected detrimentally. I was very fortunate that, I had both of my sons back at home, and so it was almost like turning the clock back. We were playing board games, and and they're in their 20s. It was lovely. I was like,
I know, I just know how much my wife would have loved that. Like, had
oh, it was fabulous. Little things like that, and then getting out for the walk, and then the sunshine, and it's the simple things. We think it's complex, but it really isn't. And I saw a great little sort of cartoon, and I do use it when when I'm doing any sort of presentations and talks sort of on that particular topic. And it's a little cartoon drawing, just sort of black and white drawing, and this little person saying, in their tummy it says happiness, and this another little person is saying to him, "Where did you find that? I've been searching for it everywhere." And the response is, "I found it in myself."
Yeah.
And so that sort of takes us, I think, full circle round to the whole coaching thing, because we have the greatest privilege of being able to help and support people to get them to look inward, and peel off those layers and start to become more confident and comfortable and happy with who they are. I mean, let's face it, if we have got a little bit of extra money to go on holiday or pay the bills, of course it makes life easier. I'm not saying that.
There's experiences are fun,
yeah, absolutely. But I heard this stat, which is, if you don't mind indulging me,
no, not at all.
It said the average 4-year-old laughs on average, I think it's around 4,000 times a day.
Wow. That's a lot.
How many do you think the average adult?
4?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Great guess.
So for me, happiness Happiness is about having more of a playful approach, having a more of a childlike approach to life. Curiosity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
curiosity. It's all about curiosity. I
Absolutely.
always lean into curiosity when it comes to clients. I'm always asking them, like, what would it be like to be curious about that? Stuff like, because it's just like,
great question.
No, but it's what kids do. It's how you go from that kid that looks at the mirror, licks the mirror, rubs its hands all over it, and sort of laughing at itself or whatever, to the one that goes, oh, I've got fat thighs, or I've got a big belly, or I've got my nose is too big, or whatever. It's that judgment that we get taught over time.
Absolutely.
But have you ever heard the story of the musk deer?
No.
It was apparently there's I read this in a book, so I can't remember which book it was, but it is about the musk deer loves this musk smell, and it searches frantically everywhere for this smell. It's going all over the place, running around, driving itself insane, and eventually it ends up running off a cliff and dying, looking for this smell, only to realize that it was within it all the time.
Oh,
And that's why it could smell it.
wow.
That's why it could smell it all the time.
Oh my
When I heard
God.
that story, I was like, that is a cool story, And it's like when you said about what you said at the beginning about happiness, it's like unfortunately, a lot of consumerism is designed to make us feel inadequate.
Yeah.
And then, coincidentally, they also have the solution to that inadequacy. But I think one of the things that we don't do as human beings, or we're taught to not do, or we learn to not do, I don't know, is to acknowledge when we're happy. Like, I'm happy now, and I'm acknowledging it. I'm talking to you, we're having fun, it's all good, and I'm acknowledging it. But not many people stop and acknowledge it. Like driving to work and listening to a good song and having a big sing song, that's happiness. Getting to your, I don't know, 11 o'clock at work and stopping and having a can of your favorite drink, that's happiness. Having a laugh with a friend at the vending machine, that's happiness. And it's like, if you don't take the moment to recognize that you're happy, then of course you're not going to think you're happy.
Absolutely.
But if we're not happy, guess what? We tell everybody.
Well, we can certainly recognize that, can't we?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one of the things to do is to, just to note down. We're very well aware of when we're not happy. Well, maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention and listen to the signals and signs and everything else that tells us that we're feeling happy, and then we might recognize it a bit more often.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that's dangerous these days is social media. It's like, I've had the worst day today. This happened, that happened. It's like, wow, you're so going to regret posting that. You're like, you shouldn't. My wife did it the other day. Somebody put some dog poo in our bin, and she put a thing up on the local thing of our village. And then she sent me a screenshot. She went, should I take this down? I was like, maybe. She was like, it's okay. Nobody saw it. It's okay. Like, it's a little rant like that about nobody doing it. Anyway, environments.
Yeah.
Environments. I feel like environments are really important, and they have a significant impact on us. They're an essential part of our life, what's around us. I mean, how can someone better manage their relationships with people in their lives through communication, listening, and understanding?
Oh, you're starting to get into my sweet spot now.
Oh.
So environment. So we are different according to our environment. So human beings are like chameleons. We're constantly adapting. I think it's sort of just something that is ingrained within us, probably part of our sort of innate survival mechanism. But if you think about it, we adapt to our environment. We think, okay, so how we don't even realize we're thinking it, but underneath it, we're going, right, okay, so how do I need to be in order to be accepted? Because we don't want to be rejected from the tribe. That's a survival thing, isn't it?
That's right.
So environments, we're different people in different environments. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And our behavior can change, our communication can change. But for me, it comes back to the whole self-awareness thing. So if we want to grow, I think it's really important to acknowledge that other people's needs as well within that, and not be, sort of push that ego to one side.
Hard.
It can be.
Yeah.
But sort of push that ego to one side and really be thinking about, okay, so in order for me to be successful in this environment, but in order for me to get the best out of my relationships, I know what I need, but what is it that other people in this team, in this environment need as well. And I think oftentimes we don't recognize the needs of others as much as perhaps we could.
Yeah.
It sort of moves me a little bit into DISC, I guess, because one of the things that, I mean, I first came across DISC back in, well, let's rewind. DISC is a model of human behavior.
Yeah.
So it's a psychometric profiling tool that sort of talks about our behavior preferences and our communication preferences. And lots of people know about MBTI, Myers-Briggs, and DISC is just another version of that. So when I came across
revealing,
that,
isn't it?
it's very revealing. Yes.
Yeah, I felt well seen when I did it. I was like, whoa.
And some people don't like it because of that, you know, because it's so accurate.
Yeah.
But I guess that's because feedback can be hard, can't it? Because we've all got that blind spot. You know, if any of your podcast listeners know about the Johari window, we have that blind spot that other people might see and recognize in us, but we don't see or acknowledge in ourselves. And if we can shrink that blind spot and become, I guess, comfortable with maybe the bits of us that we don't like, and shine a light on that, and then grow to change and develop that, then not only do we become a better person, I believe, we're working on ourselves holistically, but we're also able to nurture and support those relationships that are important to us. So my DISC preference, my profile, if you like, DISC is an acronym for the 4 different parts of our personality. So dominant, influence, supportive, and compliance. And we have a little bit of all of it in all of us. And the prominence in my profile is I, influential, people, you know, wanting to connect, emotions, you know, all of that stuff. And D, which is driven, dominant, you know, decisive, doer, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So that's sort of like my sort of blend. Both very, very fast paced. But my partner, my husband, he is sort of less intensity on those and a higher intensity on the sort of the more sort of reflective, slower pace, attention to detail, etc. Now, before I came across all of this, we would clash, because he would say, you know, I would be writing Christmas cards and he would say, and I'd rush them. It's a task. It was boring. I just wanted to get it done. Rather just sort of like go, oh, it's so hard, you know, that type of stuff. Oh, I've got to write Christmas cards. So, and he'd say, Sharon, you've spelt the address wrong on the envelope. And I'd say, so what? It doesn't matter. It's an envelope, you know, it's a card. And he'd say to me, because he was higher on the attention to detail, the C, the compliance, the correct side of the DISC model. But it does matter, because if you're going to do it properly. Otherwise, don't do it at all. What will people think if they see that you haven't even bothered to take the time to spell their name or their address correctly? Now, at the time, I didn't think that was a big deal. Now, I'm much more aware of that, sort of like that limited side of my profile, my personality. And I do try to slow down, do my best reflecting actually in the car, which is interesting. It's the only time my brain's not a million miles an hour. But I now know how important it is, because for someone like Mark, my partner, if he received something in the post or an email or something, and they hadn't even spelt his name right or his address right, he would think, well, if you can't even get that right, then you can't really think that much of me. B, you haven't really, you haven't taken the time to be considerate of even getting that right. So what else are you not even bothered about? You know, that's sort of talking about it on a personal level. But if you move that to a business perspective, you know, if you can't get your clients' details right because you've not spelt it correctly.
That makes
all
sense.
right, there are other things that can sort of go into the mix there. And of course, you know, we all get it wrong sometimes. But first impressions, you never get a chance to, second chance to make a first impression.
It just makes sense though, doesn't it? Like you're taking the time to understand other people's preferences, judgments, just the views of the life, and you're sort of helping that along. You're making that easier.
Yeah.
That's good communication, that's good friendship, that's good listening,
Yeah.
that's good everything, isn't it?
It is, because we just assume that everybody communicates in the way that we like to communicate. Everybody assumes that other people like the environments that we like, because we see through our own eyes. But of course, we're all different. That's what makes the world such an interesting place, isn't it, Johnny? We're all different. Different people make up our world. And the people that we often, and this is one of the things that I sort of teach, and you'll know in DISC, is that the things that sort of irritate us about other people are usually one of two things. One, it's something that we probably need to work on ourselves. And two, it's what's different about them. And often what's different about people is it's what we find difficult about them. And if we take the time to understand what's different about other people, see through their lens, step into their shoes, well, then actually that's going to improve that relationship, because we're seeing things from their perspective rather than from our own.
And I think it's like a preference thing, isn't it? I think sometimes we can get so attached to our preferences that we forget that that's not the only way to do it. It's like, you didn't do it right. No, I did it differently.
Yeah.
It's like I did not do it right. I did it differently. And it makes me think, I was talking to a client the other day, and I was saying to them, like, it feels like there's three versions of ourselves. There's the person that we want to be, which is that, like, driven by our values, right? This is who I want to be. This is how I want to show up in the world. There's the person that we're sort of forced into being by other people, like, I have to be mum, I have to be dad, I have to be brother, sister, whatever, employee. And then there's the person that we actually are.
Yeah.
That's the person. And I don't know whether that's the person we don't like, or whether it's just the person we don't take the time to get to know. We just don't get to know them, so we don't recognize what their needs are and what they want. And we, how many times do we go somewhere, we're like, I don't even like this dude, why am I here? What's going on? Like, what's happening here? Like, why am I doing this? And I think it's like, we don't spend enough time on ourselves.
No, definitely not.
And then guess what, we don't really want to spend any time making someone else feel good, because we feel a bit crappy, maybe. I don't know.
Well, we do all that transference stuff, so if I'm feeling bad, then that is going to seep out into the environment, into the way that I communicate with others, into the way that I am with other people, and then that just grows and grows and grows. It comes back to that happiness thing as well. Maybe if we get in touch with that person that we need to get to know internally, maybe we'll just become happier all round.
Well, I think, like, I always, as I'm doing these podcasts, I'm always thinking about what the title will be. And there's definitely a getting to know yourself type of title coming being developed here. Like, but I suppose it's important as well, like, to define what environment means. It doesn't necessarily mean, like, I don't know, the physical location. It's to me anyway, it's the people, places and things that are encapsulating our life, even things like mobile phones, look at the impact that they've had, like, people can get you anywhere. I think it's Jay Shetty said, like, what would you do if you woke up in the morning and there was 100 people standing in your bedroom? Like, that's basically what you're doing with social media. When you switch it on in the morning, it's like 100 people are in your bedroom. It's like, that's well creepy.
It is, isn't it? And all those little micro hits of, everyone trying to contact you, and, so if you think about that, gosh, you can start off overloaded before you've even started the day.
Imagine that by 9:30, you've had, I don't know, 300 people's opinions. Do you know what I mean? It's like, or 300 people's bad days, or whatever it is. It's just like, wow, why am I doing? And we do it to ourselves. We voluntarily do it. It's amazing.
Definitely. Be careful who you follow. Follow Johnny.
I think I reckon there's people that follow me. I'm blatantly on mute. Right, this guy's a lot. Get him out of my life for a bit. It's all good. But I mean, one of the things that I know that we come up against a lot as coaches is self-sabotage. And is it possible that people can become well practiced at that? Do they do it so much that they actually, because I always say, like, you're self-sabotage, things always seem to go wrong. And I say, well, you practice self-sabotage, and if you practice something long enough, you become quite good at it. And it's that sort of feeling. I mean, how can people challenge that behavior, do you feel, that self-sabotage? How can they get into that and understand it? Because a lot of people are causing, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, and there's obviously a lot more context to be brought to it, but most likely when bad stuff's happening, there is some accountability on your part, and that's really hard. That's such a hard thing to like go, no, it's not. And it's not saying it's your fault or there's blame or anything. It's more about the impact. The impact of what you're doing. So anyway, I'll shut up. I asked you a question and then started talking.
That's all right. I'm loving it. Perhaps I'll have to interview you one day. Anyway, so there's a lot there, isn't there? Self-sabotage. I think we can get, well, in my opinion, always in my opinion, I don't think there is anybody out there that doesn't have negative thoughts ever. Because the brain is a survival muscle, so it's constantly looking to keep us safe. So it'll be like, so if you do that, what might happen? I think those people who have had the privilege of training to be a coach, that are interested in self-development, they might not be a coach but they're interested in self-development, that have had the pleasure of growing up in an optimistic environment, are those people who perhaps are able to notice those negative thoughts, challenge them, and then have tools to reframe them. So just like resilience is a skill that can be learned, communication is a skill that can be learned, it's the same with being able to shift the mindset. So I believe in what I call mental fitness. So mental fitness, a bit like physical fitness. Keep coming back to you being a PT, Johnny. So that sort of physical fitness, when you were doing all of that stuff, or any PT knows, if you want to, I don't know, have stronger muscles, then you don't go straight into the gym and start lifting, I don't know, 100 kilos straight away, because you won't be able to do it. Your muscle's not strong enough. So you might start with, I don't know, three kilos, and then you might go up to 5, and then you'd gradually work it up until maybe might not ever be able to lift 100, but you're working towards that. So it depends on your size and everything else. So our mental fitness is the same. So basically, what we want to do is build our mental fitness muscles, because if we're not mentally fit, it's going to be much harder for us to cope and reframe maybe challenging big sort of situations, life situations. Whereas if we are working on that mental fitness muscle and we've got good mental fitness, then we're able to deal with bigger challenges, bigger weights, if you like. The fitter our mental muscle is. So that's why I'm saying it's a skill that we can learn. But what is, I think, a common misconception is, particularly if you haven't worked with a coach or you're not sort of into personal development, the sort of the layman in the street will think, well, all I have to do is think positively and everything will be okay. Well, you and I know that works for a teensy little time before that critic comes back and says, no, I don't really believe that.
And also, in a very serious situation, that might get you slapped. Like, oh, just think positive, right? Go away.
Yes, I don't need to hear all of that right now. No, exactly. So it's about, so I always would say to anyone that is interested in this sort of stuff, okay, so it's like listening to 2 radios. You've got the radio with your favorite music, and that's nurturing and you love it, and then another radio that's playing music that you absolutely hate. We know that the way that our brain works, the reptilian activating system, will focus in on that annoying one, and we won't even be able to hear the other. So it's about turning down that volume. So we've got to notice it first, be a detective, sort of like, I've noticed that's a negative thought. What am I thinking here? And then we can challenge with some really great self-coaching questions. So where's the evidence? To prove that's true? What's the likelihood of it happening? If it does happen, it's unlikely, but if it does happen, then what am I going to do? So if we've got a plan, we feel in control, don't we?
That's it.
So recognize it, challenge it. And then, of course, you're right. The more we practice that positive self-talk, and whether that's through, sort of having empowering beliefs, whether that's having a morning mantra, whatever it might be, just like every time we practice something, it just becomes more and more familiar and more sort of, it's a stronger synapse in the brain. So
just becomes ingrained sort of thing.
It becomes ingrained. Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that, because I asked you about self-sabotage, and what I love is that you never use that word once in that whole thing, because what you're saying essentially is that what you focus on grows stronger.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly
like
that.
basically about, it's not about saying nice things to yourself and all that sort of stuff. It's about focusing on what's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's helpful. Like, we have bad, I say to clients a lot, like, don't be surprised when a sad song makes you feel sad.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like, appropriate. It's appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's absolutely okay to feel like that. But do it for a bit. It's that rumination, isn't it?
Yeah.
That rumination, it's that picking the scab feeling of like, oh, every time I touch this, it hurts. And, like your mum would say or whatever, every time I touch this, it hurts. Well, stop touching it then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's old school parenting. Like, there, it's like, got a point, to be fair. Like, I am touching it all the time. And it's like, when bad things happen, it's so easy to ruminate.
Yeah.
So easy. And it's, no one blames you. And for a little while, you're going to be thinking about it. It's raw, it hurts, it's painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there has to come a point where you have to focus somewhere else. And that doesn't mean that you have to do anything about that thing. What it might mean is that, you see that thing over there that needs my attention, I'm going to give it my attention. I'm going to do that instead, instead of doing this thing that's making me really unhappy all the time.
Yeah. Do you know what, Johnny? It's really funny, what's just come into my mind. There's a scene in one of my favorite movies, which is Love Actually.
I love it. Yeah.
And there's all those sort of different side stories going on. And it's the scene where the guy goes to Keira Knightley's house and he pretends he's a carol singer, and he's got that big sort of like, all those words where he just sort of tells her how he feels. And then he does it, and then he walks away, and then he says, right, enough now. And he's talking to himself. And it's almost like sometimes we need to get to that point, and as you say, it's got to stop touching it.
Yeah.
Enough now. I need now to focus on something else. Yeah, that's what came to mind when you were saying that.
Do you know what, though? I think for the two of us having this conversation, and for people listening, it's important that we say and we recognize that is really hard to do.
It is.
And it will conjure up all sorts of feelings, almost like, and I'm going to be really careful and sensitive with this, almost like a grief, you want to focus on it because it's taken up your attention. It's caused you discomfort, pain, strong, powerful emotions. And for a small time, that's okay. But there does come a point where it's not healthy anymore. And no, I suppose it's like exactly as you said, it's about noticing it and then refocusing yourself, which is hard. And you might need help.
It is, absolutely. And not that we would have time, or it's not appropriate at the moment, but there are lots of people that have looked at me over the years and go, oh yeah, it's all right for her because, but I've definitely had my fair share, believe me, and maybe that's for another time.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely say that the traumatic things that have happened in my life, major traumatic, and just sort of a little bit of a trigger warning, like baby loss, for example, that type of thing, has definitely made me who I am today. Yeah. And so what I was able to do, I've worked through that terrible, I've been in the darkest place I could ever be, but I've used I've used that experience to in a way that has propelled me forward, and I've used that to create who I am and be comfortable with who I am today. And as a result, that experience hasn't been in vain. Now I know that is that's a very sort of throwaway comment, and if you're in it, you can think, well, it's all right, it's very well for you to say, but I'm in it right now. It does take time, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, even though the tunnel's a long way away. But we do have to make a choice at the end of the day, don't we? Whether we stay stuck or we use that experience to I don't know where I'm going with this, actually. We've moved in a very different direction, but we
No.
use that experience to create something that doesn't mean that that situation was in vain.
Yeah.
I'm only speaking again from my own
No, no.
experience,
Do
of
you know
course,
what? Thank you
for
so much
everyone.
for saying that. And obviously, sorry to hear about all that stuff. But I mean, what you've just done, is such a kindness. You've just offered one of the greatest gifts to someone that might be experiencing that, and that is hope.
Yeah.
A little bit of hope, like that it will feel better at some point. I've been through some stuff recently. It's been really difficult, and when you're going through hard things, uncomfortable things, painful things, it feels like it's never going to end.
No,
you know
exactly.
it feels like it's
Yeah.
never going to end, but it does get easier. And time, I hate that. I don't love the saying time is a great healer, because there's also work that needs to be done in that
Yeah,
time. And that's
definitely. Yes.
that's it. Like, I don't want to take away the accountability.
That takes bravery as well, though, Johnny, doesn't it? To
It does.
know that actually I need to do the work.
Mm,
Because because we've got to look within ourselves, and that's uncomfortable.
yeah,
I had to look within myself, and it was a very uncomfortable place to look,
I
because
bet.
I felt sometimes if I looked in and I sort of peeled off and I started to look inwards, it would be such a big black hole I'd never get back out of it again.
Yeah, yeah,
But we do.
yeah,
Human
yeah,
beings are incredibly resilient people,
yeah,
much more than we actually ever give ourselves credit for. But then
yeah,
that comes around to having a good support network.
yeah.
You've got
And
a
it
safety net.
You're right. And it's like that whole well analogy of like not climbing in the well to help someone out the well.
Yeah,
You've got to stay out the well. And it's really hard because, if you think about that as an analogy, especially like myself, if I'm thinking about my wife who's going through that pain and that discomfort, and she's at the bottom of the well in the dark hole, I want to
yeah,
get in and give her a cuddle. But the problem
yeah.
is, if I do that, then I'm stuck in the well too.
Exactly,
So it's
exactly.
about
Yeah. And
trying
you
the
can't
hardest.
help her when you're in the bottom of the
No,
well.
exactly. It's about offering a hand and saying, listen, I'm just going to leave this hand here. When you're ready, it's here,
Yeah.
which is really difficult. But as I said before, thank you for sharing that. That was really, I'm confident a lot of people will get a lot from that. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Uh, Resilience. We spoke about resilience.
Yes.
Resilience, let's face it, it's only really one way to get resilience, and it sucks. It's like go through something bad. That's it. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you know what?
Oh yeah.
I might
Oh
stay
yeah.
away from that. It's like, but if you do stay away from it, then everything else is hard.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, sort of going back to you're saying about the search of happiness,
Mm,
um, what I've experienced just sort of in sort of my sort of niche areas, family, parenting, education, that type of stuff. And and I'm going to use the collective. We all as parents want the best for our kids.
yeah.
And as a result, sometimes we try to fix it and
Mm,
shield them from all of life's challenges, and we do it with the best of intentions. But when we do that, we do them a grave disservice, because they're not experiencing the knocks in life. So if you don't experience the knocks in life, how do you manage to learn to get back up again?
yeah.
And so appropriately,
Yeah.
not set our kids up to fail, of course, but
Every day I put thumbnails on the floor so
yeah,
they get, it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah, I did the
electrocute them.
Lego walk last night. Let's see how you get on with this. Yeah. But yeah, joking. Yeah, that's the way it is, though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
You're absolutely 100% right. Unless we experience, and for our kids, age appropriate challenges, then we don't learn
Mm,
how to deal with the knocks in life. Sometimes we just need to be there for that person, or
yeah,
or the child, and say, do you know what, it is really tough when it all goes wrong, and
yeah.
I'm here and I'm listening.
Yeah, that is hard. Again, like, and this is, I say, it's the running theme of it is that, a lot of this stuff is hard, which in
Yeah,
essence, like as human beings, we will always gravitate towards things that make us feel good, and we'll always try and avoid the stuff that makes us feel bad. It makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
Problem is,
definitely.
there's not a lot of learning in what feels good. It's lovely and it feels great, but it
Yeah,
doesn't really teach you anything. I mean, you might have got the impression I quite like an analogy in the story. And
me too. You're in
yeah,
good company.
but there's like, it's like the one with where they plant the trees, right? So they plant the trees and little baby trees, and they put that stick next to it, don't they?
Yeah.
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 And then after a little while, they take the stick away because the tree needs to learn to be strong without the stick, right?
Yeah.
The problem is if you leave the stick there, the tree will probably fall down soon because it hasn't expanded its roots. It hasn't sort of dug deep and grabbed hold of the
Yeah.
earth, you know.
It's relying on the stick
That's
rather
it.
than
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, like just as you said before, and just as you're saying now, it's really difficult. You know, my son was having some trouble the other day with some stuff at school, and I felt that compulsion and that urge. I wanted to
Yeah.
fix it. I wanted to call parents and to get kids together and all that. And then I just stopped
Yeah.
myself. I embraced that feeling, and I went, "It's tough, son. Do you want to
Mm.
cuddle?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Mm.
You know, and I felt really useless, and like I wanted to do something else. And my wife, she will do something else. She'll do lots of stuff to the point where my son's like, "Go away," you know. And it's
Yeah.
hard. I get it. I totally get it. I want to do those things too, but it's like when you see somebody else doing it and you realize it's not working, you recognize you have to take a different approach.
You do, and that's the pleasure of being a coach, isn't it? You know, because although we sort of joked that our kids go, you know, don't treat me like a client, don't talk to me
Yeah.
like a client. Actually, when we use those sort of coaching, empowering questions, we're actually getting them to look inside themselves for the answers and the resources that perhaps they hadn't even appreciated that is there. And you know, I've always said to, you know, as well as, you know, if you don't give it a go, how will you ever know? You know, I've always sort of instilled a, you know, I don't know, a belief, if you want to call it that, that there is always an answer. It might not be the answer that you want or you thought you wanted, but there is always an answer of some kind. There is always a way. So, and I think having that sort of mindset allows us to start thinking, okay, so what is that one thing that I can do in this moment? And that is all about building resilience to know, yeah, it goes wrong, but what can I do in this moment? What's the one thing? If I need confidence, you know, what one thing could I do right now to help me to feel a little bit confident? It's not jumping from 0 to 10. It's just moving from 0 to 1 or even half a step, because we've just taken a little bit of a step forward, haven't we?
Do you know what? I learned something like that with addiction. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I suffered a lot with childhood trauma, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty significant. I ignored it for a while, used
Yeah.
alcohol to mask it, all those different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And I'm now sober. I've been sober for 2 years. And
Fantastic.
one of the things that I realized is that quite often in life it's about choices. The problem is if you don't believe that all of the options for those choices are a possibility,
Yeah.
then you're not making a choice.
No, it's right.
You're not making a choice. You know, if you don't believe that A is ever going to happen, then obviously B is the answer, right? You know,
Yeah.
but the fact is, and what I'm trying to get at is that to me, it was never a possibility, never an option, never a consideration to stop drinking alcohol until it got so bad that I was like, that elephant with a lampshade on, maybe I
Yeah.
should talk to that for a bit, you know. And
Yeah.
that's when I
Mm.
realized that, you know, I had to stop doing that. It wasn't serving me
Yeah.
anymore. And you know, to its credit, it did its trick for a little while. It helped me avoid, it helped me connect.
Yeah.
You know, contradictions of
Yeah.
life, isn't it?
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it's about recognizing that, you know, if you really got a tough decision to make, you do have to believe that all of the options are a possibility, because if you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice potentially in the future.
Mm.
In
Mm.
the future, potentially. It needs context, but you're right. You know, that is resilience is a tough one, man. It's hard to encourage
It
people to
is.
touch the flame.
It is,
You know.
yeah, and because it goes back to that bravery thing, you know.
Mm,
It takes, you know, when we start to peel layers off ourselves, you know,
mm,
it's uncomfortable. It takes bravery to make that choice, but you know,
mm,
you know, that all goes back to what I call personal power. You know,
mm,
the ability that we have in our lives to make choices and get our needs met, and
mm,
you know what you and other people would be experiencing, you know, post addiction or in addiction is, you know, you're getting a need met.
yeah.
It might not be actually serving you long term positively, but you're
Mm,
using your personal power to get your needs met. And I think this is a really empowering place to work with people, to know that, you know, there is always a choice, and a choice deciding to do nothing is still a choice. You're choosing to do nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm so glad you said that, because you're right. You know, deciding to do nothing is a choice. It says it in the title. You decided to do it.
Yeah.
You know, you decided to do it. But I mean,
and it might be because it's not the right time.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know, because we can start reflecting. You know, at the moment I'm choosing, you know, I've worked with women in domestic abuse situations, and, you know, it's very easy for an outside person to say, why don't they leave? You know, but, you know, that it might not be safe right now. So the choice is to stay, but I'm making a decision to make a plan to move on.
It's a slow movement, you know, but that's the background I come from. My mum was the same. She put up with a lot of violence and all sorts of things. And I don't think people can underestimate the comfort given to somebody by familiarity. You know, like what they know. It's like what we were talking about earlier about anxiety, you know, that awareness of infinite possibilities. It's like, stay here. Yes, I'm in this situation, but what does that look like? I don't know, you know,
and I know what to expect when I'm here.
And I can do stuff around it, you know. Stuff like that. But I mean, you know, coming out on the other side of addiction, I'm the happiest I've ever been. And, you know, I feel a freedom that I can't articulate, and I'm told I'm quite articulate. So
you live it though, Johnny. You know, you can see it, you know, you exude it actually.
I try.
So
I
you do, without a doubt.
But one of the lessons I learned is that you talked about bravery. And do you know what I learned? I spent a long time as a kid, and for a little bit, unfortunately, as an adult, being scared and believing that I was a fearful person because I spent a lot of time scared as a kid. And what I realized is that actually, when I reframed it, like you said, guess what? You can't be brave without fear. You just can't. You cannot. You know, it's impossible. So therefore, I'm not fearful. I'm brave. You know, and that works for me.
And that is such an important lesson, and there is so many lessons within that. You're right, because you could use that for so many things.
And that's right. It's a transferable skill, if you want to call that.
It is. You know, nerves.
So I'm gonna put brave on my CV.
And I'm a brave person. But you know, when I'm working with youngsters, you know, anxiety comes up a lot. But you know, if you really tune into those sort of those physiological feelings and responses that you get when you're feeling, you know, sort of like stressed or nervous or anxious, it's very similar to when you're excited. So we can, you know, if we can teach that, it's incredibly empowering.
Comes back to that, what we focus on, doesn't it?
It does. Indeed.
Now, I'm sure that you're super busy. I would talk to you all day, but I'm just gonna ask you one more question, and that is there anything you'd like to pass on to people listening that could help them with their self-development?
Okay. I'll just have a lovely long conversation. Do we have to do this question? No, I don't. What would I like to pass on? I would say that we are lifelong learners. There is always, you know, there is always something that we can do to improve ourselves, a tiny little thing, to trust in ourselves and trust in our gut, that we are truly, it's going to sound a bit twee, truly incredible human beings, and we were all put here for a purpose. All of us have a purpose, and what I always find incredibly sad is when I work with adults that have never found their purpose. So, you know, tune in to what really makes your heart sing.
I love it.
Do more of that. Do more of that, because, you know, life is for living. It's too short. We know that. All the crazy things that's happening in the world and has happened in the world, you know, we've got to take those little snippets. And whether that means, if you are a stay-at-home mum and you're going to pick up your kid and you can walk along, you know, a busy main road, or it takes you an extra 5-10 minutes to walk the same route but through the park, take that extra route. You know, nurture yourself to do something that actually, you know, sort of raises you up. So we don't have to necessarily be working our purpose if that's not something that we feel we can do, but, you know, to find that one thing that makes our heart sing and just do a little bit more of that, then I think the world would be a lovely place.
That was a perfect answer. I love that. No, you're right. It's a very clear message, isn't it? It's a very clear message. Like, it's a feeling. When you feel it, keep doing it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's all good. It's all good. As long as you're not breaking any laws. Let's just put
No, exactly. Oh, yes, absolutely right.
Yeah. Oh, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Tell people where they can find you, and anything you want to bring to their attention, anything like that.
Yeah, of course. So you can obviously find me at the Coaching Academy. And if you are interested in personal development or looking to find out a little bit more about what we do there and coach training, you've been listening to Johnny. He's a brilliant advocate for coaching. We do lots of free introduction to coaching webinars throughout the week. So you can find that on our website, and that's the-coaching-academy.com. And then you can hook up with me. I hang out on LinkedIn, so Sharon Lawton on LinkedIn. But the pleasure has been mine, Johnny. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's great. It's been great. I knew this conversation would be like this. That's why I was really excited about it. And it's like I've been watching the time going, man, stop going so fast. It's crazy.
It's flown by.
It has flown by. It has, but just to come off the back of what you just said, the Coaching Academy, in my opinion, is the only place. No, it is. It is. No, because like the way you guys are doing it, like what you're doing is you're creating a very boundaried coach, which is what's needed, because there's that compulsion in every human to want to fix, to want to help, to want to offer advice. Can't do that.
No.
We don't have the answers. I mean, none of us surely are arrogant enough to believe that we have the answers to other people's lives. That doesn't make sense.
No, definitely not.
But if you listen for long enough and you're patient and you encourage and you sit with somebody, they've got the answer. They have. Absolutely. And that doesn't have to be for coaches. That can be for friends. That can be for family members, just have a bit of faith in people. They've always got the answer. Anyway, we're about to go off on one again. I'm sure of it. So listen, thank you.
Continued.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Anytime. But thank you so much again. Always a pleasure. And speak soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Johnny.